Hello viewers and welcome to my new video. In today's video I would like to talk to you a little bit about a band agreement or a partnership agreement, which it's known as in law. So I've talked before on my channel about the importance of having contracts and agreements with people that you work with, including your bandmates. Okay, so today I just want to draw your attention to just a few key points of what could be included. And I'm not saying this is a definite list, okay, because you need to obviously adjust your agreement to your specific circumstances. But in general, I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of what points could be included, at least as a foundation, as a good basis for such an agreement. First of all, you need to list all the people who are going to be party to this agreement. List all the names and addresses. Secondly, specify the name of the band. Specify the purposes of what you're gonna be doing as your music business. Things such as songwriting, collaborating, playing live, recording. Specify how things will be decided upon. For example, through voting mechanism and such. What types of decisions are going to be considered under this clause. For example, you could be thinking about something like appointing a manager, and a record company, signing any external contracts with other businesses or people, for example, and how that's going to be decided upon. Admission of new members into the band, as well as people leaving the band. How is that going to be facilitated? Any change to the name of your band. Like I've already mentioned, any choice of a record company or a publishing company. In fact, any representative, including a solicitor, for example. Anything related to touring, anything else like appearing on TV, radio, things like that. How are you going to be deciding on the choice of which songs are going to end up on a record, for example, so that's important, so how are you going to be making these types of decisions? You could decide that at some point, if your band sort of grows, you may want to turn your partnership into a limited company or an LLC, so limited liability company, as it is known in the US, for the purposes of conducting your business. So you need to decide how that decision is going to be made and at what point. Finances, okay, so this is very important. So how finances are going to be handled in the band. What type of accounting are you going to be doing? Because you need at least some basic accounting, really, in a sense that you need to know what goes in and comes out of your band. For example, stuff like paying for rehearsal rooms, paying for transportation, for gear, things like that. Any investments that might be coming out of individual band members' pockets, So for example, if everybody contributes equally to a certain, purchase of an item, or maybe for some marketing, buying adverts, for example, online, on social media and things like that, all of that needs to be covered. What would be good to cover also is a clause about the fact that if you are bringing things into the band that you previously owned, such as your musical instrument, for example, and things like that, that they continue to belong to you and they don't just become a band property all of a sudden. So again, try and cover these items in that agreement as well. Anything to do with hiring session musicians, for example, for your band. How is that going to be managed? How is that going to be facilitated? Any legal challenges and how they are going to be handled if they ever occur. So these types of items I've just listed, they're called the group activities. And then there's also the non-group activities that might have an impact on your group. For example, they might include being in other bands or maybe having a solo career as well. So say, for example, if you all come together as a band and each one of you also plays in another band or bands or has a solo thing going on, then it will be good in the agreement to effectively cover how that's going to be managed, because you need to come to some kind of a compromise, especially when it comes to, for example, booking gigs, any gig clashes, anything like that, recording dates and such. Make sure that you cover a clause that any income generated by you in your activities which are outside of the group activities, any income generated through that stays with yourself. I've already touched upon that, but this is really important. When any of the members leaves the band, any entitlement that he had before, so for example, any equipment that he brought into the band, he's obviously entitled to take that with them. And also what's really important is royalties, okay? Because if, for example, one of the members who is leaving the band has contributed to, songwriting, recording, so they're on that recording as a performer even, they still are entitled to royalties from the work that they've actually put in whilst being the members of the band. So all that needs to be written and sort of agreed upon how that's going to be handled. Again, finances. Are you going to have a bank account? The band bank account. In that case, who's going to be responsible for handling that? You might want to mention that, if any of you are going to be part of the musicians union, for example, how are you going to decide if you want someone out of the band? Because those occasions may happen. And again, it would be good to sort of include that in your agreement. So for example, again, is it going to be done through voting or some other ways? Again, similarly, if one group member has brought some equipment that belonged to them prior to joining the group, then obviously they can take this, but they cannot take anything, I suppose, that maybe the group paid as a whole, but you may want to figure out how that's going to be handled, because obviously if they've put some money in, do you need to recoup that, for example, from them? So do you need to transfer some money over to them so that that is covered? Anything related to the group name. So important, okay? So who owns the group name? Is it all members? Is it just some of the members? That needs to be also agreed. This is particularly important in a case when the group disbands, because what happens then? Who has the right to the name? Because these cases have actually been fought in court in some, like in cases also of actually big groups, big bands. Like Pink Floyd is one good example of that, when I think at one time there was actually two bands that were touring under the name Pink Floyd with sort of two different original members of the band, and it's like, how do you resolve that? Copyright issues also need to be included in the agreement. If you have a dispute in a band, well, in case of a dispute, put it that way, you may want to include a clause about how that dispute is going to be resolved. One of the ways to do it might be to find a third party. For example, musicians union might provide that support if you are all members of musicians union, or you can just get an independent person basically involved to help you resolve your issues. When it comes to voting, some of the band agreements that I've looked at, usually it is sort of stipulated that, for example, if there's an even number of members, so for example 4 members, and you have a decision to be made, so if 2 members vote for it and then 2 members vote against it, then it would be, the outcome of that would be that it's not going to happen. That kind of would be, that's kind of what is proposed in some of these band agreements. However, like I say, if this is not satisfactory, then you could actually resort to having an independent person coming in who can then sort of make that decision on the band's behalf, or perhaps help you negotiate and help you sort of facilitate that process and make that decision successfully. All members should sign the agreement, obviously, so it becomes binding effectively. And I think that's it. Those are the key points that I would include, that I think could or should be included in a band agreement. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, and I'm sure that in your particular situation, in your particular band and circumstances, you may think of some other things that you need to cover in that agreement. But this is just so I can give you a bit of a starting point. I hope that you found this video helpful, and this is it for this video. So thanks very much for watching. Please leave me a comment, and I will see you in my next video.